The Shadow's Bargain. Story 1. The Watcher. It was a dark and stormy night when Mary moved into her new house. She had just graduated from college and was excited to start her new life. But as she settled into her new home, she noticed something strange. Every night, she would see a shadowy figure standing outside her window, watching her. At first, she tried to ignore it, but it was always there, always watching. One night, Mary decided to confront the shadow. She opened the window and called out to it, asking who it was and what it wanted. But there was no response, only the sound of the wind and rain. The shadowy figure remained motionless. The next day, Mary went to the police and reported the strange occurrence. They told her they would patrol the area and keep an eye out for anything suspicious. But as the days went on, the shadow continued to appear outside her window, and Mary became more and more frightened. One night, Mary woke up to find the shadowy figure inside her house, standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed and ran out of the room, but when she returned with the police, there was no sign of anyone. From that night on, Mary never saw the shadow again, but she always felt like it was watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. Story 2. The Haunted House. Jenna and her friends had always been fascinated by the old abandoned house at the end of their street. It had been empty for years, and the rumors about it were wild. Some said it was haunted by the ghosts of the previous owners, while others claimed it was cursed by a witch who had been burned at the stake. One night, the group decided to investigate the house. They climbed through a broken window and started exploring the dark and musty rooms. But as they made their way through the house, they heard strange noises and felt cold draughts of air. In one room, they saw a shadowy figure standing at the window. It was tall and thin, with long fingers and a hunched back. They tried to leave the room, but the door wouldn't budge. They were trapped. As the shadowy figure approached them, they screamed and ran towards the window. But just as they were about to jump out, the figure disappeared, and the door suddenly opened. Jenna and her friends never spoke about what happened in the haunted house again, but they all knew that the shadowy figure had been watching them, and that they had come dangerously close to something they couldn't explain. Story 3. The Demon. John had always been fascinated by the occult, and he had spent years researching the dark arts, but he never expected to summon a demon. One night, he performed a ritual in his attic, hoping to make contact with the other side. But something went wrong, and a shadowy figure appeared at his window. At first, John was excited. He thought he had succeeded in summoning a demon, but as the shadowy figure entered his room, he realized that he had made a terrible mistake. The figure was not a demon, but something far worse. It spoke to John in a language he couldn't understand, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. It promised to grant him great power and knowledge, but only if he agreed to serve it. John was terrified, but he couldn't resist the lure of such power. He agreed to serve the shadowy figure, and it disappeared into the night. But from that moment on, John's life was never the same. He became increasingly obsessed with the occult, and his behavior became erratic and dangerous. He began to have vivid nightmares of the shadowy figure, and he could feel its presence watching him at all times. He tried to break free of the deal he had made, but it was too late. The shadowy figure had claimed his soul. As time went on, John's behavior became more and more erratic. He would speak in tongues and perform strange rituals in the middle of the night. His friends and family grew concerned, and eventually, they had no choice but to intervene. They brought in a team of experts to try and exorcise the demon from John's body, but the shadowy figure was too strong. It fought back against the exorcism and claimed the lives of several of the experts. In the end, John was left alone in his attic, possessed by the shadowy figure. He was never seen again, but some say that on certain nights, you can see a shadowy figure standing at the window of his old house, watching and waiting for its next victim. Rumors spread throughout the town that the old house on the hill was cursed, and that anyone who entered it would never return. Some claimed to have seen the shadowy figure standing at the window, watching them with glowing eyes. As the years went on, the house fell into disrepair and became overgrown with vines and weeds. It was left abandoned, a constant reminder of the horrors that had occurred within its walls. But the legend of the shadowy figure at the window lived on. People would dare each other to approach the house at night and try to catch a glimpse of the figure, but most were too afraid to even come close. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the old house. They had heard the stories and wanted to see if they were true. As they entered the house, they felt a chill run down their spines. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and they could hear strange noises coming from upstairs. As they climbed the stairs, they saw a shadowy figure standing at the window, watching them. It was the same figure that had possessed John all those years ago. The teenagers froze in terror, unable to move or speak. But just as the figure was about to approach them, a beam of sunlight shone through the window, casting light onto the figure. It let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished into thin air. The teenagers ran out of the house and never looked back, but they knew that the shadowy figure was still out there, waiting for its next victim. The legend of the haunted house lived on, and people continued to tell stories of the shadowy figure at the window.